We're ready to go.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to be here. I'm excited to be here with my friend Kristen. I'm Jamika Burge. I am a computer scientist. I'm a researcher. I'm an entrepreneur. And the thing that I'd want you to know about today, especially relative to our conversation, is that I am co-founder and CEO of blackcomputer.org, which is an organization that seeks to provide professional support, community, and all the trimmings relative to building a community of computing and technical successful professionals for Black women and girls. And I'm excited about that because it also means that I get to talk a little bit about the value of computing and computer science and computational thinking, how that work actually filters into my day job and even work that I do outside of my day job. And frankly, how it connects to mathematics, which is where I will now bring in my friend Kristen to introduce herself.
Well, hello. I'm Kristen Chrobocinski. I have been teaching math for the past 16 years, mainly 5th through 8th grade. I now teach at a small private Catholic school in Maryland. And I teach 7th grade math, and I work as an instructional coach with teachers. So I really... obviously math education is my passion. And I have a passion for also just working towards equity in mathematics. And I think that's part of our conversation today. So.
For sure. And one of the things that I think about, actually I think about a few things in this context, but because I am a computer scientist by training, and it actually is the way I've learned how to think about problem solving, it absolutely filters into everything that I do. And if I take a step back and think about the value of math in my work, it really nicely intersects. And so there are two things that I can think about in terms of how funding or how math directly impacts my work. And one is in funding. I think there's value in the awareness that to have a business, to have a nonprofit, a tech organization, or any kind of business securing and maintaining funding and capital is tantamount and requires at least the basic math skills that allow us to think about how to stretch those dollars and how to get as much return of that investment as possible. The other thing that comes to my mind is this conversation that I actually had at work a few weeks ago, where I actually used the term order of operations. Now, Kristen, I never thought I'd use that term at work, but the value of that is because it's such an important, that level of thinking is such an important part of who I am and how I show up, that I used it in the context of ensuring that as we are doing and delivering our work, we are connecting with our partners, we are creating outcomes, we are sharing those outcomes and sharing what to do with those outcomes in succession, which is exactly what order of operations means, right? It means to follow the right protocol, to do the first things first, and then the others fall into place. And I think that level of thinking really does help to make real the value of math and how it shows up in our daily lives. And to your point, because I'm also really excited about the work that I do through Black Computer, there's also that social emotional context. There's that equitable context of how are we connecting all of this work in ways that are meaningful. And that, I think, is the crux of the meaty topics that we're going to be talking about today, right? Namely, math and CS and equity, a little bit of the coding and the computational thinking and the things that might extend beyond computing, social emotional learning, and that's certainly extended to the workplace. And we could talk a little bit about what that looks like. And of course, computational thinking. And so those are the topics that sound great for a conversation. Are you ready to dig in, Kristen?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think just because, it's such a big part of your work, Jamika, I think diving into the equity piece is probably one of the most important parts. And I think what a lot of people want to hear and talk about is, what is helpful for us as math teachers as we're working with students and working towards equity in mathematics. And I know you keep working on it with computer science. How does that intersect and how can that help us as math teachers?
I think that's a really great question. And I wish I had the perfect answer. Ultimately, it depends. But one of the things that I found, especially in our research with Black girls, and in particular, we have run a few summer camps and summer programs where we've connected and engaged directly with middle school girls, both in New York City and in the Arlington, Virginia area, in the Northern Virginia space. And what we've learned is not unlike what other programs have found out, which is that there's value, first of all, in connecting the computing to real world applications, to things that these girls are more likely to care about. One of the things that we did find that I think is unique for our program is that as we are helping these girls to find the value in computing in the world around them, and to find those things and to connect it to those things that bring them joy and passion, like fashion, creativity, art, music, that as we connect them to those things that they hold dear, doing so under the cover of a mentor who looks like them actually is really meaningful.
Yes.
And so combining those two things, not only each of them alone is very powerful, to be clear, right? If we are connecting computing and coding to fashion and sharing with girls, hey, you can develop graphic artistry and the digital designs that can fuel your passions, that's exciting.
Yeah.
If we layer onto that the context of mentorship with someone who looks like these girls, it takes it to another dimension. And
absolutely.
So that's what we found that works. Connecting mentorship, people who look like the people who are doing the kind of work that we want the girls to do more of, and connecting it to the work and to the things that the girls find really interesting, really makes a difference. And it also is a great equalizer. It means that if we found something that connects to a passion that these girls have, then it means that it's no longer unattainable, right? It's something for which they can see the connection, and hopefully gets them engaged into exploring other areas of the space that may not at all be what they thought they'd find interesting.
Absolutely.
And so I think that really is also the value of math that we don't think about. Like, I love math as a kid, so I'm probably not the best person to think about how, to be talking about how we might get more students interested in math. I think, I always love math. But that said, what I really enjoyed is that there was always something new to learn. And I could apply that knowledge in some other way, even if it's, working through and building a proof. I can actually apply that into some of the areas of my life. Like, if I'm really trying to pay my bills, but I only have so much money and I've got these other things I got to do first. Again, what's that order of operations? But also, what do I have to do that gives me the most impact right now? And so I think it's the thinking that the work isn't just about the work. It's about how we might apply our learnings to our lives. And I think that, for me, is the part that allows us to ensure that the field is accessible and equitable by design in that too. Because if I can see myself in it, then I could also envision these mentors who are also doing the work in it. And I could actually do more to drive the value of that work and to bring my own perspectives, my own ideas about what good looks like, what success looks like, about what the future looks like into the work, because I've been made comfortable. I've been made aware and been given these direct points of entry that feel good for me and that make me feel that I can contribute meaningfully.
Well, and I would say that when I looked you up and was looking at all the work that you do, I realized, as a math teacher, we know that coding is, and working in computers and tech, doing things with tech is an important part of our teaching. But, I would always do maybe the day of code or, something as like a very one-off kind of thing, like, oh, let's do this. And this is fun. And we'll kind of hang out and try this activity. But I think it's important that we look for more experiences so that it's something that is a regular occurrence, and something that the students can pick up on. Because, like you said, not every student is going to like the same thing. And there's so much out there for them to look for. So I was going down this rabbit hole I looked at the website Black Girls Code, which is an amazing website. And I was looking up the tutorials, and there was coding with Roblox, and there's coding with P5JS, and doing some just JavaScript art, and so many cool things. I just dabbled in it myself and just just started working on it. And what I was thinking is that as teachers, I know we often like to be completely ready for our class and making sure that, everything is set. And obviously, there are certain things we want to have ready. But I think it's also important for students to see us as learners, and as maybe we don't know how to code very well. Maybe it's something that's new to us as well. And can we learn it together, which is, I think, an awesome part of teaching, and also a great way to get students to see, like, we're vulnerable. We're not sure what we're doing, and offers just another way in so that students can learn something new, and also hopefully get them excited about it because they know that we're learning it at the same time, which I think can be helpful too.
I think that's amazing. And it's that connection piece, right?
Yeah.
I'm not doing this by myself. We often say this in computing, especially as it relates to broadening of participation. We say there aren't enough women and girls in the space. It can feel isolating, and it can feel like you're the only one, because often you are. Come join us. Now, how would you respond to that invitation? Like, it's lonely at the top, or even as I enter,
right?
There aren't going to be people who look like me. And if I've never seen this stuff before, who's going to be my buddy, as I'm working through this? None of that feels appealing.
Right.
So you've just created the environment of connection, of shared learning, that really does open up the conversation and creates opportunity for these students to see themselves as not so different, right? And seeing that the space is really an opportunity where all of us are always learning all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think another piece of that, which is really important, is the social emotional piece. And I would love to get your thoughts on what you do, or what you encourage some of the people that we work with on when they hit roadblocks, and when they get frustrated. I know that's such a big part in the classroom, is that when students get frustrated, a lot of times they shut down. And it's this like time when they're just like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. So what kind of things have you done to kind of combat that?
That's a good question. And I got to tell you, I'm still learning. But, as long as I live, I think there will always be an opportunity to learn how to do things better. But I will say that, sometimes the awareness of who we're working with and the environment in which we're working can dictate how we respond in moments of stress, or in moments that can be pretty difficult to navigate. And I've certainly been in spaces in a technical capacity where my work and my voice have not been valued. And I've shown up differently in those spaces than I do in other spaces where, even if I'm the only one who looks like me in my space with the fro and the red lipstick, if I'm the only one who is in that space who looks like me, where there is a sense of community. And so I'll start in that space where I haven't always felt that my voice has been heard. And there are a couple of things that I do in those contexts. The first is I find my voice. That's really important. And it isn't always easy, because it means that I have to speak up for myself. And I have to know that what I'm speaking to and speaking about is grounded in data or fact. And so there can be disagreements with me, certainly, but you have to bring your data too. Right. And so that for me gives me an opportunity to acknowledge that I am coming prepared. And so I can own my voice in that context and speak up for myself. Something else that I'll also do, and I'm going to come back to that speaking up for myself piece in a moment in my example. But something else that I'll often do is ensure that as I'm going into a meeting, or as I'm going into a session with other folks, especially if I don't feel as confident, or that the space will be as friendly, and this could be all in my mind, but it's how I feel, I will find a buddy who's also going to be in the meeting, who can back me up or say some things in the background that help to lift me up. And an example of that is I've been in a meeting before, actually a couple of times before, where I've said something, made an idea, made a suggestion, or shared an idea and made a suggestion, and it was flown over. No one heard it, or it didn't land. And then moments later, someone will say the same thing. And I've, in that moment, both let it go, and someone else has spoken up for me and said, hey, I think that's what Jamika said before. So, appreciate you bringing that up, Mitchell, but let's determine if that's exactly what Jamika had in mind. So that level of buddy system works. And I've also done it myself. I've said, oh, Mitchell, I appreciate you bringing that up. That sounds very familiar to what I said before. Let's dig in. And I think that level of speaking up is something that doesn't always happen easily. And it doesn't always feel comfortable either, because there's a level of acknowledging that I haven't been heard in that speaking up. So that level of self-awareness is a big part of how I have to remind myself to show up. And that's the other piece. Having that level of self-awareness, which comes with time and lots of experiences and is continually evolving, is really important. How am I showing up in the space? And am I triggering to other people in ways that they either don't understand? And that's not my job to change how I show up. It's not my job to change how I look or how I speak, but I can exercise a level of self-awareness and what I call emotional intelligence that allows me to be able to see and check out the room a bit more quickly. I tell people I've been Black a long time. So adversity is not a stranger to me. And so because of that, I think I'm able to, and there's research that tells us that people of color have higher levels of emotional intelligence, and whether people believe that or not is a personal choice, but the data, again, don't lie. It helps me to be aware of these moments or these pockets where I may not be accepted for who I am and what I bring, and there are some other things that I might need to do to ensure that my voice is heard. So those are a couple of things that I do more broadly, and would love to hear what you found helpful in the classroom.
Yeah, well, I think you've mentioned so many things that I think as math teachers we struggle with, but also are important parts of how we teach math. I think one of the first things you said was about just being prepared and having an argument. That's part of the process standards that we teach our students all the time, is how to construct a viable argument and defend it. And we really value that. And I think if we create more experiences where students feel like they feel comfortable and safe, that they can problem solve and come and have different opinions and be able to voice their opinions about how they feel in the math classroom, I think the better they're going to be. So I know that, I work on creating those spaces, but, we can always be creating more just opportunities for students to make their own decisions about maybe even types of questions that they are answering, or where the conversation is going about the math. Maybe they're interested in one way. We have our whole plan going another way, and we want to just think about how we can be flexible with them and allow them to kind of take it where they would like to go. The other part of it is giving more experiences for students to feel uncomfortable. I think, like you said, there's so many times in our life where we're going to be coming into a room and feeling uncomfortable. And for them in the math classroom, that might be seeing something that's really difficult and not knowing how to start it, not knowing where to go from there. And having students given those opportunities are so crucial for them to be able to grow in their own selves and their own self-awareness, and being able to just see like, oh, I can do this if I just take my time and think about it and get a buddy, work together with somebody else. I think there's plenty of opportunities where you can get that opportunity to grow and learn. So I think you've mentioned so many things that I always have been thinking about in the classroom, and I think it just helps to be validated by someone who's out there working and having these experiences to know that what we're doing is actually really important. So I think, yeah. Did you want to say something else about that?
No, I'm just saying I love that. Thank you. And, I never would have realized, as I'm struggling in my math classes, which I really enjoyed, that struggle is actually part of the learning. Like you just said, that's part of how you are creating space for your students to be uncomfortable. And that's so helpful to know.
Yeah. And I think, and the other part that I was thinking about was just when, as teachers, we want to make sure that we're always kind of changing things up for the students and changing, the types of problems that we're doing, even the where they're doing it, how they're doing it, even seating arrangements, just changing things up so that students feel like they're coming into a new experience and something, like you said, that kind of gets them out of their comfort zone they have to work towards it a little bit. So yeah, I think that's
it.
Yeah.
And I think that's our time. But what I hope folks walk away with from this conversation, which I've enjoyed. So thank you for partnering with me on this and for leading this conversation. What I hope folks walk away with is the knowledge that it's not as difficult as we might think to find connections between math and the professional world and beyond. And hopefully this is a conversation that helps to illuminate that. So that's my takeaway. What might be your closing thought or takeaway?
Yeah. I think I really appreciate talking to you, and it is even brought out some new thoughts and ideas for me as I think about my classroom this year and what kind of things I might want to do differently. And just that it is important that we look for those connections to other jobs and in other areas, and that's so connected to those things. And that we, as math teachers, we often kind of sometimes are stuck in our own little bubble, like we got to get through this curriculum, we got to get through this, we got to get through that. But really, if we think about what are those things that the students are going to need in the future, what are they going to carry from our class? Are they going to remember the Pythagorean theorem? Or are they going to remember how they felt in that class and how they felt supported and encouraged and became more of who they are and who they want, and they were able to think about what they like and what they want to maybe do in the future? Those are the important things that we want to make sure we push them to think about, so that they're inspired and that they go to the next class having a better sense of who they are. So, yeah.
Mic drop. Well, it's been so good to see you. So good
to talk to you. Thank you so much.
See you later.
Bye. Okay. Hello, everyone. It looks like I'm doing this solo. So are there any questions that you have from our presentation? All right. I don't see any questions. I really appreciate all of you tuning in and watching our conversation. Jamika is an amazing person, and it was really great to actually have a chance to connect with her and think about coding in a different way. So I really appreciate our conversation. All right. Thank you.